Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Imagine if every teacher, every pediatrician, every therapist was actually trained to recognize fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, FASD. Just like they are with autism. Today, our deep dive is really focusing on what some of our sources are calling the disability that's still in the shadows.
Hmm.
And our mission really is to explore what a huge difference it could make if FASD finally got the same kind of visibility, the same respect as autism, and why that recognition is, well, just so crucial for so many people.
Yeah, it's a really powerful comparison because the struggles can look quite similar on the surface, right? Even though one condition is, well, widely recognized and the other often isn't.
Exactly.
So comparing it to autism isn't just like a handy metaphor. It really throws a spotlight on a critical gap.
Yeah.
What we found digging through the source material is pretty stark. It
Yeah.
highlights that the reality right now, tragically, is that most professionals miss it.
Most professionals miss it.
Well,
Wow.
yeah. And that initial failure to recognize it, it just ripples outwards. It affects everything down the line. It leads to some pretty significant, often devastating consequences for the children and for their families, too.
Okay, so if that's the reality, this condition being largely overlooked, what did the research tell us about why? Why does it stay in the shadows? What stops it getting the same kind of attention as autism, where, we have fairly robust screening early intervention programs?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There was one statistic that really jumped out from the material. A staggering 80%. 80% of children with FASD are misdiagnosed before they even turn 10.
80% before age 10.
Yeah. I mean, just think about that for a second. That's years of potentially inappropriate schooling, behavioral interventions that, might actually make things worse because they're not addressing the root cause.
Right, because they don't understand the underlying issue.
Exactly. All because the underlying neurological differences just weren't identified. Now, contrast that with autism. Diagnosis there certainly has its own challenges. Nobody's denying that.
Yeah.
But there's a much more established pathway, generally speaking, for early identification and getting support in place.
Okay.
And our sources suggest this often comes down to some pretty fundamental differences. Things like public awareness, professional training or lack thereof, and funding. Funding for research, funding for support systems.
Wow. Okay, 80% misdiagnosed. That's not just a number. That
Yeah.
represents years, crucial years of a child's life where they simply aren't getting the support they actually need.
Precisely.
So if we could change that, if we could bring FASD out of the shadows, treat it with, I guess, the same urgency and recognition as autism, what does that look like on the ground? What kind of concrete changes would we actually see for these kids and their families? What gets better?
Well, thinking about that potential for, transformative change, our sources are pretty clear that treating FASD with that same level of recognition and support would be monumental.
Yeah.
Truly.
Monumental.
Yeah. It's about taking a condition that's hidden and bringing it into the light,
Yeah.
the light of understanding and effective intervention. Just imagine support plans that are truly tailored to the individual child's needs, not just some generic behavioral plan that doesn't quite fit.
Okay, tailored plans. What else?
Think about school placements. Placements that genuinely serve these kids, where the educators actually understand the why behind certain challenges.
Like what kind of challenges?
Well, things like difficulties with executive function or maybe impulse control. Those are pretty common with FASD. And crucially, this isn't always about obvious physical symptoms. It's often about how that prenatal alcohol exposure can subtly, rewire the brain, affecting areas that are just critical for things like planning, remembering steps, regulating emotions, self-regulation, basically.
Right. And that understanding piece is huge, isn't it? It leads to more effective strategies. And crucially, it must foster a much needed increase in just community understanding.
Absolutely. That's a huge part of it.
The call from these sources seems really clear. It's about making sure FASD is seen as real. It's about ensuring these kids get, the same fair shot as others. And fundamentally, it sounds like it's demanding that we properly train professionals, like across the board, teachers, doctors, therapists.
Yes, leveling the playing field through proper training.
So thinking about all this, what does it mean for you listening right now? What other conditions maybe or challenges do you think remain in the shadows in our society? And sort of what power do you think increased awareness actually holds to change that kind of landscape?
Ultimately, the whole point of doing these deep dives, looking closely at topics like this, it isn't just about gathering facts, is it? It's about hopefully using that knowledge, that understanding, to maybe spark some change, make a real difference. This exploration of FASD, it really serves as a powerful reminder, I think. A reminder that there are likely many overlooked conditions out there. Conditions where, just with greater visibility, greater understanding,
Hmm.
we could see a fundamental shift in how we support people,
Yeah.
how we empower them to really thrive.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What opportunities are we missing? What potential are we leaving untapped just because, well, maybe we're not looking closely enough
Hmm.
or not asking the right questions?